This particular talk is on religion and family values. I tailored this for ReasonCon in North Carolina last month, and in putting this together, I went through the Atheist Experience emails, and I looked specifically for the emails that involved stress on families, people that had contacted us because they were having some sort of family stress. And I think that there's a pattern to these emails, that there's something that we see over and over again. And we also get a lot of emails that I think can be categorized in particular ways. So if you were to go through our email list, you would see all these emails coming in, and they would reflect particular categories that you would start to see patterns and say, I can file these in a particular way. When I first started working with the Atheist Experience, one of the things that was, I think, most impactful on me was the email list. When I started to get access to the letters from the viewers and see what people were writing about, there were a lot of issues that came up that I don't think that I was prepared for. And we weren't prepared, I think, as a group when the show became popular on the internet, for the flood of appeal for help that we did receive. None of us are counselors, none of us know really how to advise somebody on these issues other than, well, this was my experience, or this is what I've seen other people saying. As we amassed more and more letters, we started to gain at least some pool of experience in how other people had addressed certain things. So we started to get access to more and more stories, at least, on how people had handled certain situations, and that helped us out a bit. But still, someone asked me last night, they said, well, what do you do if someone writes to you and they're talking about things like if somebody is suicidal or somebody, and I said, I don't even go there. If somebody writes to us and they say, they're having suicidal tendencies, or they're on medications and something's going wrong, or they're seeing particular things that they didn't see before, and the first thing we'll ask them do you have a doctor that you're seeing about this? Or do you have access to mental health care or someone that you can contact for support? We'll give them hotlines. We try to outsource them to resources where they can get in contact with people who actually are qualified to handle these issues, because we are not. It was a concern for me that people were reaching out to us in a capacity that we were not prepared to handle, and that we were not really technically equipped to handle, not qualified to handle. It would be unethical for us to try to handle. So now there are groups in place, like Recovery from Religion, which do have people that are trained to handle and field these problems in these calls. And so now we can refer people to groups like Recovery from Religion and say, if you're having a really difficult time getting out of religion, you're having a really difficult time with a family situation that is more extreme than, can you give me a tip for how to do this or that, you might want to call them. And when I was at ReasonCon last month, we had Sarah Moorhead come and talk, and she is promoting Recovery from Religion quite a lot. She was a very good speaker, and some of the things that she discussed reminded me of what happened with the Atheist Experience. So she talked about how when in the first week that they opened up their hotline, they were just flooded by calls. They got so much more volume of call than they expected. And with our show, we've gotten so much more volume of email than we expect. When we have particular issues like indoctrination that we discuss, we'll get this flood of emails, after that showing, and people will say, oh, I had that experience, I had that same issue, I had that same anxiety. And I hear this again and again. And I was staying last night with some good folks that we all had a discussion, and someone was telling me about a group that they started locally when they felt like they were isolated as an atheist. And I was like, oh, you're doing this group, that's really good, what is this about? And they said, well, I've been in this small community where I've been isolated. I felt like I was the only atheist. I went ahead and posted to see if there might be some other people out there, because I just felt like there had to be somebody. And when they posted, they said, now we're up to about 60 people. And some of those people are people that I knew, that I didn't know were other atheists, right? So they were in touch with other atheists, they just didn't know it. They didn't identify each other as atheists. Nobody opened their mouth, nobody said it, nobody understood that there were other atheists in the room. And I think that's part of the issue here. One of the good things about recovery from religion is they're gonna start amassing statistics. And so we're gonna start seeing more and more actual figures. I'm tired of people saying, well, how many people are atheists in the population? And the answer is, I don't know. You know, we have people that self-label atheist, they're very few. I don't think anybody in this room thinks that everyone that self-labels atheist is the only set of atheists. I think all of us know that there are people who label many other things, but they don't believe a God exists. Some of those people honestly do not know that they are an atheist. And so we have more numbers, I'm sure, than the people who identify as an atheist. But we don't get those numbers, they don't count toward us as a demographic, because we have right now a dialogue that's controlled by a majority theistic community that makes it difficult for people to come out and say they're atheist. And they're also misrepresenting what atheism actually is, and they're making people not understand that they're atheists. They're doing everything that they can to make sure that our numbers remain ambiguous and low, because it benefits them as a majority to keep us ambiguous and low. So it's important for me, I want to see more and more people being able to come out and identify and really understand what they are, so that when we get those numbers, we can start saying this is the percentage of the population that's actually atheist, and we have some confidence in that figure, because right now I have no confidence in that figure. And I think there are a lot more people that are atheists than we are aware. And I think that religion is causing a lot more problems than it gets credit for. I think that we have a lot of fundamentalist religions and evangelical religions. Definitely some of those religious sects are far more toxic than others. So please don't think that I'm painting a broad brush here. There are many people that go to their church and all they're looking for really is a social connection. They're not really concerned about, changing laws or controlling your life or, worrying about whether or not you're having sex. They really just want to go and go to the bake sale and help with the food pantry, and they sing some songs and their kids go to Sunday school and everybody gets a lollipop and it's fun and they go home. Those are not the people that worry me the most. I'm concerned about any sort of promotion of an irrational belief, but I am more concerned about the ones that are promoting the most harm. Definitely they can be categorized from most harmful to least harmful, although I would that everybody would be more reasonable in what they're willing to accept and believe. So one thing that I did a while back was I started doing this series of blog posts that I called something like the best PR machine ever. And I was saying, how is it that something like religion can maintain these stellar reputations in areas where they're doing so much harm? Like, there's so many areas where we're getting all these letters where people are saying it's destroying this, and yet the social reputation is that religion is so good for this. And I was like, I can't explain it other than they have got some amazing PR. This is the best PR machine ever, when you can actually go in and tear something apart and then get credit for being good for it. And I can't understand, I just can't understand how that's possible other than it's stellar salesmanship right there. And families are a great example of this. What happens is The Voice is all the people who are saying, this is great for my family, and the voices of the people who are saying, this is destroying my family, or my family thinks this is great, but I'm destroyed. Those voices don't get heard. And they get an asterisk. Don't get me wrong. There are many religious people who will say, oh, it can cause problems if it's taken to extremes, whatever. And so there's a little asterisk that it can be problematic, but let's look at all this great stuff that it does, and now that we've acknowledged that it can sometimes cause problems, we don't need to focus on that, right? We can focus now on all the wonderful things that religion does for the family. The problem, though, is I've started to see a trend in some of these families that are tied to particular types of religions, again, the more conservative religious groups, which are not minor. Okay, we're not talking about a couple fringe groups. These are big groups. You've got Baptist churches that are very conservative. You've got the evangelical movement, which is building churches that can house, several thousand people. Upwards of 10,000 people can fit in some of these churches. These are not small movements. And these groups have taken a situation where the family is what should be serving the family as a social bonding practice or a social bonding event or item is now becoming the main focus, where the family is now being distorted to serve the need of the ideology. So the example I used last night was if you have a family with a couple of children and one of them plays soccer and one of them plays piano, they may say, okay, Tammy has soccer night on Tuesday, so Jimmy and Dad and Mom, we're all going to go to Tammy's soccer game and we're going to cheer for Tammy because that's your sister and we're a family and we support her and the team is doing well. So we'll go out there and we'll cheer on Tammy, and it's going to be bonding. We're watching your sister play, we're cheering for your sister, this is great. And then next month, Jimmy's got his piano recital. Tammy, I know you're not into piano, but you're coming because it's your brother. You love your brother. You want to see what he's doing. He's proud of his piano. He's been practicing hard every day. We know that you don't like that, but but you're still going to come out and you're going to support your brother, and we're going to do this thing as a family, right? And then we're going to go camping all next month, and everybody loves camping, so we're all going to have a good time and go out and hang out at the lake and cook hot dogs and have a fun time. And so the family can use these things, right, all kinds of different things, to form bonds, to promote the idea that we support each other. We may not always be into it, but you're into it because it's your brother. You're into it because it's your sister. I'm into it because it's my kid, right? We're going to support this because this is what Dad needs. This is the kind of thing that a family does to kind of teach them that you bond, and we love each other, and we care about each other, and we're important to one another. But the fact that Tammy doesn't like the piano and she stands up and says, I'll go to Jimmy's recital because he's my brother and I do love him, but I cannot stand listening to the piano. Nobody says, you're not my daughter anymore, and you're welcome to leave this house because if you don't like the piano, you have no place here. And nobody says to Timmy, if you don't think that soccer is exciting, and you're not willing to, tell your sister that you love soccer, I don't understand how you can be any child of mine. I mean, who does that, right? Because these items are serving the family, and we understand that they are there to serve the family. These things are supposed to serve the family. The family is not there to serve the soccer team. The purpose of the family is not to serve the piano practice or the piano recital. It's about the family first, and those family bonds first. And that has got to be the pinnacle of what your family is about. It's not about utilizing your family as a tool in the service of some ideology or some activity or whatever it is that you're starting to gear your family toward instead of the family and the members of the family and the health and the welfare of those members of the family. So I think that religion as a tool to, quote, serve a family is a unique tool because it seems that it only serves the family when the family serves the religion. I don't think that it seems to be serving the family. As soon as somebody stops being on board with serving the religion, suddenly the whole family collapses. And that's not really a healthy tool. That seems like a dangerous tool to be using to serve your family, or a dangerous tool to use to promote your family's health when the moment somebody doesn't agree and somebody isn't on board with it, everything collapses and crumbles and those bonds are torn apart. I'm not sure that's the tool you want to choose when there's so many other tools out there that actually do serve and aren't going to rip you apart if they don't work out. If somebody doesn't like camping, it doesn't tear apart your family. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and start looking at some of these slides. This is my little family here, little nuclear, very, very hetero family. And but whatever, I guess I could have included all kinds of little connections there. But okay, whatever. It's very iconic, I admit. So we'll go on. This is kind of what I was talking about before. The idea that Americans, we seem to just give instant credit to somebody for being involved in religion. There was a study that was pretty recent. I got it published here in this article in 2015, but there's a lot of articles that came out about it. There was a flurry once the study was published, and it said that 2/3 of Americans think that attendance at church is admirable. Just attending church. That's admirable that you attend church. Why? Right? Why? What does that really say about you? Nothing. You don't know who that person is that walked through the door, but just because they walked through the door, you think that's admirable of them. To me, that's ludicrous. 9 in 10 called it acceptable. All right, or whatever. 11 considered it useless. And I was upset that they didn't have a category for detrimental. I would be like in the, whatever, the leftover percent. I might even be, 0.5, whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to be raising my hand. I think it's harmful. Even non-religious people have favorable opinions. That's what disturbs me the most. Now, non-religious doesn't mean atheist. I get that. But the fact that the secular community seems to also still respect this for no reason. 80% believe church attendance is acceptable. 43% of non-religious people consider it admirable. Why? 29% call it useless. And again, they didn't ask about detrimental. I wish they would have. But this automatic respect, respect like that should be merited. There is no explanation for why going to a church should be considered an admirable act. I can't think of any argument that would support that. There's a lot of things that I would consider admirable, and that's just simply not anything that I can understand. I originally wrote these survey questions with the hope of, actually interacting a little bit with the audience, but I found that there wasn't a lot of time. I had initially pulled out the emails that I wanted to include in this, the testimonials from people about their families, and there were so many that I had to go through, and I kept making slides and making slides and making slides, and finally I was like, you know what, I need to stop making slides because there's no way that I'm going to be able to go through the slides that I've already made. So I need to chill out, and I need to see how long this talk goes. So I did a practice run through it, and I was halfway through it, and I was done with my hour. And I was like, okay, well, I need to cut down some of these slides then. So I need to look at some of them. Are there, what kind of redundancies? They're all going to have redundancies, but some of them seem to stress particular anxieties that I want to hit on specifically. So even though they're all going to be similar in nature, there's going to be certain aspects of the quotes that I pull that are going to highlight different things as more important to this or that person. But I did want to just sort of ask people in the audience, by a show of hands, who in here feels like they have, well, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, so we'll go in the positive. How many people in this room feel like they have a reason to get up in the morning? Okay, so I mean, you're here. That's something. Yeah, you came down. You got to meet with people. So a lot of people feel like they've got some purpose going on. There's a reason why you're getting up in the morning. You got a purpose to your life. I don't know what it is. And if we talk to people, I'm sure some people are going to have similar purposes. Some people are going to express things that are very similar. And then there's going to be some people that express very unique things that drive them in their life. Everybody's purpose is going to be different. And I think that everybody understands that. I don't think that there's going to be very many people in this room who are just like, well, isn't the purpose of everyone here? The reason we all get up in the morning is because X. No, I can't imagine somebody just making that assumption to say that, the purpose in my life is that I'm saving up for this trip to Everest and I want to climb Mount Everest and right now that's where I'm putting all my money and I think that everybody else in this room is probably doing the same thing. No, what drives me is not what drives somebody else. I mean, that's a no-brainer, it should be. You can't there's not a one-size-fits-all purpose for human beings. There's too many, it's too much of a complex question. There's too much diversity, too many aspects to choose from to say that we're all going to come to the same conclusion for why we're getting up in the morning. If you're part of a family, and not everybody is, but if you're part of a family, how many people feel like there should be some reason to creating a family? That you don't just decide one day, I think I'll have kids and I'm not sure why, but let's do this thing, right? I would, even if you stumble into a family, which a lot of people do, I would still think that in the months leading up to starting that family, there's some thought that goes into what do I want to do here? Even if you're not expecting it, even if this is like, oh, a surprise, I would still hope that you would think to yourself, I have a kid coming and I need to figure out what I'm going to do. Like, what is the plan? The plan can't just be, we're going to have a kid and then, whatever happens, happens. I don't think that would be a very good plan. And I would hope that most people would be more responsible than that if they had decided, like, hey, let's go forward with this surprise. You got a few months to think about it, and I would think that any normal person would spend some time thinking about it, and they would come up with some kind of idea of what they intend to accomplish with going forward with this process to produce other people that you're then going to be rearing for the next 18 years or more. And you might want to put some thought into that. So I think that the idea of a family having a purpose, again, it might be different for different people. But I would hope that it would involve things like, I want to raise happy, healthy kids. I want to make sure that they're good citizens, that that they're well-adjusted as much as possible, that they have the support that they need, that I make them, independent if I can, if they're capable of being independent. Whatever you're going to deal with, you can't always. There's no guarantees what you're going to get, but you still should have some kind of template for what you're going to try to accomplish when you're producing new people. It's kind of important, Well, this is what I thought anyway, but I'm wrong. Focus on the family sets me straight. Yeah, they're boo-boo, it's boo, focus on the hiss, but they're a powerful lobby. So this is not some fringe group that nobody listens to. They have a lot of influence. They're very politically influential. And they describe themselves as a global Christian ministry dedicated to helping families thrive. We provide help and resources for couples to build healthy marriages that reflect God's design and for parents to raise their children according to morals and values grounded in biblical principles. Now, that's not surprising because they are a religious lobby. So there's nothing really shocking about that mission. But they say, ultimately, we believe the purpose of life, right? They're not saying, our purpose or the purpose of life in a Christian, or the purpose in life is to know and glorify God through an authentic relationship with His Son, Jesus Christ, right? So if you're not down with that, your purpose is all messed up. If you're a Muslim, you got it wrong. If you're Buddhist, you got it wrong. If you're an atheist, no, you're wrong. We're all wrong. This is the purpose of life. This isn't just like a purpose they're offering if this works for you. This is your purpose, whether you accept it or not. This purpose is lived out first within our own families and then extended in love, because we know Focus on the Family loves, to an increasingly broken world that desperately needs Him. So they live it out. The purpose of life is God, and that purpose is lived out primarily in their own families, first, primary, in the family. So you've got the family that's there to serve the purpose, which is God. And to me, this is how we're heading down the wrong path of starting to use the family as a tool to serve the religion, and that's not what a family should be. Let's see if we can get this one right, because I'm not doing too well. Is there anybody in here who has no values? Show a hand. Yeah. You might want to move away from this guy. He's got no filter. I would kill you just as soon as kiss you. It doesn't matter to me. Raid on a roach, a gun, bullet through your head. It's all the same. There's no value to anything. It's all just the same. It's all just, everything's gray. Do you have any idea where you get your values, or you just decide them on the fly? Right? Like you're hit with a dilemma and you're just like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, what do I do here? This. Right? No, you don't do that. You think about it. When you're hit with something that you need to make a decision about, a value-driven decision, you stop and you think. And sometimes it's hard because sometimes you have conflicting values. I value this, I value that, and they kind of don't mix in this particular problem. And I don't know what to do with this, so I need to put some thought into it. Well, you had better have some idea of what your values are and where they're coming from. Because if you don't, you're in a mess. I don't know how you negotiate life if you don't have some clue of how you determine how you value things. If you can't figure that out, I don't know how you made it here tonight, right? So I would hope that people feel like they have values and that they have some concept of how they derive them for themselves in their own life. But they don't, right? And that's the thing. It's like I'm wrong. So I found this cute little children's book that's on sale. And it's called 10 Christian Values Every Kid Should Know. So it's awfully cute, little children. Everybody loves kids. So part 1 was the values tree, how to help children learn values. And so number 1 seems to be an explanation of the values tree. And number 2, make sure they understand where your values come from, right? Values begin with God. So if you don't have God, you have a problem. You can't possibly have values. And then they have, the rest of their little things. Develop self-respect and calm. Okay, that sounds good. Part 2, the fruits of the values tree. How to help children learn specific values. And the first one listed, faith in God, right? Faith is a virtue. Faith is a value. Believing things without sufficient evidence is good. But you have to have faith in God, because if God's where your values begin, you better have faith in it, or else you're not going to have values. Somebody pointed out one to me on this list that I hadn't really seen. I'm going to see if I can find it now. I was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. I don't know if I see it. I don't know. They had pointed it out, and I remember thinking, like, that was very strange. Now I can't find it. I don't know. But anyway, not important. But still, the idea is teaching the children that their values begin with God, and that faith in God is like a primary value. And also, part of the issue here that I talked about last night was something somebody said to me one time, which was, if you want to poison a dog, you don't just hand them poison, you wrap it in bacon. If you look at that list in part 2, respect, responsibility, self-control and moderation, honesty and integrity, kindness and compassion, contentment and thankfulness, patience and perseverance, peace and humility, loyalty and commitment. Those are all things we value usually. In the right context. Certainly you don't want to be loyal to something horrible. But I mean, the idea of simply being able to express loyalty in the right circumstances is not a bad thing. And so you've got this list of very good sounding things. And when you're telling a child about values and you're giving them all these great values and that you can explain and that you can say, this is why respect is important, and here's why self-control is better than just binging and going crazy. And this is, being thankful to people is a good thing. Being patient can serve you. And you can explain all these things to a child. So you're giving them all these great explanations. This makes sense. Everything's making sense. This book makes sense. Mom and Dad are making sense. This is all very good sounding. Faith in God gets rolled right in there. And there you go. You've just swallowed the bacon full of poison. For a child to differentiate that one would be extremely amazing when they're being told this by their parents, who are their primary authorities in their own minds. So that kid is going to suck that right up, and it's going to sound like it's coming from somebody that knows what they're talking about, because they've given them this great list of other very supported values. I decided I wanted to look and see what anybody else had to say about this. And so I went to this site for Mission Islam. And they had a section on family. They had a lot of interesting sections, but this one was on establishing an Islamic family. Most importantly, a home is an important means toward building the Muslim community. The society is made up from the home, and it is the origin. The home is life, and life is society. If the home is strong, then the community will be strong in implementing the laws of Allah. Now, the first part I agree with, which is that if you want to have a healthy community, you have to have healthy families. You can't have dysfunctional families and form a healthy community. So they do understand that healthy homes are important for a healthy community, and I think that's a fair statement. But it goes on to pretty much say what we just saw on the Christian site, which is that you want the healthy family to serve a healthy community because God. So we can promote God, we can serve God. The goal is God, right? All of this is leading up to, is a process that goes toward a goal, which is God. And if you don't have that goal, then none of this matters. None of this has purpose. None of this has any meaning or value. What is required? Now, when they're talking about callers, they mean people called by God. They're not talking about people on the phone. So what is required is callers who are guides, students of knowledge, a righteous wife, mothers who can educate, etc., to be born out of our Muslim homes and then go into society in order to reform it. And I think we know what reform it means. Righteous husband and wife share the primary and most important step toward building a righteous Islamic home. Educating the children should be done from the early age, starting with the Quranic memorization, supplications, etiquettes, and manners. So it's the first thing you want to teach them is to memorize that Quran. You want to get them religiously founded right off the bat. And that is the primary and most important step, is educating, right? We call it indoctrinating the children. Well, yeah. So again, it's just, here's this theme again that I would see that was, it seems like they're converting their families into, like tools to serve this ideology. And I don't think that's healthy. Oh, this is a tricky one. I bet you think you know and you don't. What can secular parents offer in terms of family values? If you are a secular parent, or if you had a secular parent, how many of you think that they or you have something to offer in terms of family values? That's a lot of wrong people. Grace Valley Christian Center, fortunately, is here to set you right. They can tell you about God's family values, which are everyone's family values. And this is beautiful. This site, you're going to love it. Since the fall of Adam and Eve, all people are born twisted and practice sin moment by moment. I knew you'd love it. Under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, David wrote of man's real condition, saying, "Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me. And even from birth the wicked go astray. From the womb they are wayward and speak lies." Yeah. But don't abort them because they're innocent. If a Christian father refuses to study the Word of God, if a Christian father refuses to study the Word of God daily and diligently, he will have nothing to offer his family in terms of family values. If you are not a Christian, what does that say to you about what you have to offer your family in terms of family values? Well, you got less than nothing, right? I mean, he's got nothing, and because he's only studying every other day. You aren't even there. So you're like, if there's negative, you're probably teaching them horrible anti-values, right? Denigrating horrible things. He's going to instead subscribe to and teach the secular orthodoxies that are prevalent in the world. We'll get into that a little bit later too. Oh, this is good. Eli had another problem. Eli is an Old Testament character. Eli had another problem resulting from his neglect of the Bible. The Bible says one should worship God alone. But in 1 Samuel 2:29, God asked, "Why do you honor your sons more than me?" Right? Why do you love your children more than God? In Hebrew, the word for honor is shabad, heavy. It means, why do you make your sons heavy and not me? God is the glorious, heavy, all-worthy one. And this is a long one, so take a big, deep breath. Think about his perfections and attributes, his infinity, wisdom, transcendence, omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, holiness, justice, and goodness. He alone is the heavy one whom we should honor. So you're wrong if you love your children more than your religion, more than this ideology, more than this concept of God. That is your primary thing. And not only your primary thing, but your only thing. That is the only thing worthy of honor, worthy of worship. And your children don't compare to that. So if you're a parent, you love your kids more than this ideology, you are doing the wrong thing. And what I noticed about this when I read it, like as I was reading it, I was like, this is really interesting, because if I think about God's perfections and his attributes and his infinity and his wisdom and his transcendence, his omnipotence and omnipresence and omniscience and holiness and justice and goodness, I'm wondering why he's so freaking insecure that he needs me to worship him all the time. Right? Like, why do I need to love God more than why wouldn't God say, "Oh man, I'm good. I got like all this shit going for me. Don't worry about it. Go take care of your kids." right? You just go love your children because I don't need shit, I got everything, right? That's what I would think. I mean, if I had all that crap, I'm already like that, and I don't have any, I'm not even close to this, and I'm already like, go love your kids. I don't need your worship, right? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. And if somebody had kids, like let's say, like, they say God is like your father, though. You should respect, you should honor. It's like, you know what? If you have kids, you produce those children, and then they have kids, and you're a grandparent, I would think that you would still be telling your kids, you take care of your children. I'll take care of my stuff. And you go and you make sure that you raise those grandkids right. That's what I want, because I'm the grandpa, I'm the grandma. If you love your family, you're going to want your kids to go out, those people that you produced. You're not going to say, you stick around and you love me and you worship me, and don't you dare put your children above me. What the hell grandparent says that? Right? I mean, that's ill. So if God did produce us, I don't understand why he wouldn't want us to go out and primarily love our families. But that's Christian values. Well, some Christian values. I mean, there are definitely some families that would put the ideology aside for their family members when push came to shove. So, is religion good for families? I just don't think it should get that blanket acceptance. I don't think that we should just say, yeah, it is. I think we should be saying, it depends. It depends. If your religion is the primary thing and your family is secondary, then hell no, it's not good for your family. It's really bad for your family. The following testimonials demonstrate what happens when members of a family no longer subscribe to the religion. Religion serves families as long as family members serve the religion. The goal seems, and this was an interesting thing. It seems a little weird, but the goal, when I keep reading these letters, seems to be less about keeping all the members as believers and more about pressuring them to keep pretending they believe whether they do or not. We're going to see this again and again and again. This is in every case. I don't think that people that are putting the pressure on know that that's what they're doing, but they are creating a situation where they're not really encouraging you to believe if you don't believe. They're encouraging the family member to just keep quiet about it or to lie about it. They're not encouraging them in any way to continue believing. They're just saying, we don't want to know if you don't. You just keep on towing the line. So, oddly, you would think the goal would be that they would want to keep their family members as believers and make sure the family was all believing if they really thought that that was best for everyone, but that's not what they're doing. They're just making an unsafe environment where nobody can be honest. And the problem is that in these cases, I'm using children, but it's not always children. But in the cases where it's children, what you're going to see again and again and again is the kid doesn't believe. This is something that child does not control. You do not, despite what Christians would have you think, but you do not choose what you believe. Right? I do not choose to believe that if I jump off a skyscraper, I will die. I cannot decide to believe differently. There is too much input that demonstrates to me that if you jump off that building, you're going to die for me to say that I'm making a choice to believe it. Put me on top of that building, and I don't have a choice. I believe I'm going to die, and I can't change my mind. There's nothing that's going to get my feet to leave that building roof. Nothing, because I am that convinced that I'm going to die if I jump off that roof. And I'm not making a choice there. I can't decide to think that I won't die and jump off the building. The idea that we are choosing our beliefs in this sort of, simple way is crap. Nobody chooses beliefs like that. And when these children start having doubts, and when they start thinking, I don't think I believe this. I don't think there's anything there. This is simply a conclusion that they've come to that they have found inescapable. And so what's happening to these kids now is they're being put in a situation where these homes are hostile toward the attitude of non-belief. They're afraid if they come forward, they're going to be rejected. So they don't come forward, but then they have to live in a situation where they feel like if mom and dad knew who I really was, they'd reject me. So they, quote, love me, but that's not me that they love. And so the kid has to go on feeling rejected. They feel like I'm not really loved because the person they love isn't me. They love it lie. And I keep perpetuating the lie because I'm afraid that if I tell them the truth, they will openly reject me. At least now I'm getting a pretense, a feigned sort of acceptance. So the kid is rejected either way already. The kid is rejected if they don't tell the truth, because they know that what is loved is not them. And they're rejected if they do tell the truth, because they already have been warned by the family and by the church culture that if you come out as a non-believer, you're going to be rejected. So this kid can't win, right? This kid is in a situation where they're already rejected, and now it's just a matter of, does anybody else know it? Do I let other people know that they've rejected me, or do I just keep on pretending and keep my mouth shut? And this is extremely stressful for children, especially for children, because while it may be painful to lose a spouse, you're an adult, you understand life, you know that you can go on, there's other people, you can love other people, whatever. But a child, you get one shot at your mom, your dad. That is the person that nurtures you. That is the person that you spent years relying on to take care of you, to feed you, to clothe you, to be everything in the world that kept you alive and safe. And when those people say, I reject you, it matters to a child like it cannot matter to anybody else. This hurts children in a way that it cannot hurt another person. When families use religion as a primary or sole means of cohesion, they sometimes have a hard time adhering to members who can't share their beliefs. And with that, we're going to go into some of these testimonials. I'm going to just share some stories. These are stories that I've gotten. For the most part, every one of these slides represents a slew of other slides that sounds just like it that we get all the time. There's one in here that is a rare one, and I will point it out, but I wanted to include it just to kind of show that there are extremes, and I will, when we get to that slide, note that it's not one of the more common ones we hear. Fear of rejection. My last question has to do with telling family I'm an atheist. Everybody in my family knows I'm an atheist except for my dad and my grandmother. The reason I haven't told my grandma is because she's 75 and I'm afraid it would cause her to have a stroke or something and she would die. I'm afraid if I told my dad, he would disown me. Should I tell them or just pretend to believe that stuff when I'm around them? They're both Jehovah's Witnesses, by the way. And if you're familiar with the Jehovah's Witnesses, oh, here we got one. Will they disown him?
Absolutely.
Yeah, not a doubt. He will never talk to his family members again. Dad will never speak to him again. And this kid knows this because the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not a secret. They let you know what happens. I'm sure this kid has probably seen this happen to somebody else. He knows that what his dad is going to do. And so he doesn't know what to do. What do you tell this kid? You tell him that as long as he lives under the same roof with these people, he needs to do whatever he needs to do to get by and to keep everything working smoothly. And then when he's out of the house, if he wants to risk that relationship with his dad, then go for broke. Or if you want to keep maintaining a relationship with your dad, then keep lying. I mean, there's not much more he can do. That's pretty much the choice. And that choice is dad's fault. Dad is indoctrinated. So let me back off a moment, not be too hard on dad, because dad has basically gone through the same thing he tried to put his kid through. Breeding dishonesty. I'm a closet atheist. I sense this animosity every time I try to even question my dad's assumptions and ones from my family as a whole. It sickens me to think that if they knew I didn't believe, they'd literally think I would go to hell. I don't want them to think bad things about me. I plan to never tell them I'm an atheist, although my brother already suspects it. The one time I told my dad I was an atheist, it was a disaster. I just gave up on the whole idea of being honest and started telling him I believed. That's what I do now. What should I do? How can I find peace in all of this? Well, you can't. You're between what's called a rock and a hard place. There is nowhere for you to go. And your family has made sure that if you're going to not believe, you're going to live this way. Your life is going to be hell if you don't toe the line. If you're in this family, you're going to get in line, because this is not a family about the family, it's a family about the ideology. If they cared about the family more than the ideology, this situation would not be occurring. Fear and rejection. This is part one of a two-parter. I come from an Orthodox Sikh family. I cannot cut my hair or shave. Now, I don't know, is there anybody in here that's not familiar with Sikh? Oh, everybody is. There's one person, okay. Yes, Sikh is generally thought of as a very open, accepting, loving kind of Eastern religious philosophy. The idea being that God has made everyone in the way they should be made, and that we should accept ourselves as we are. I mean, it sounds very nice, right? It sounds great. Like, oh, we should all accept ourselves as we are. We should accept other people as who they are. And wow, that's very tolerant, right? It's very tolerant, except this guy can't cut his hair. That's how tolerant they are. He's afraid to cut his hair. He's afraid of what his family's going to do if he cuts his hair. This is the accepting, wonderful, soft Sikh religion. I cannot cut my hair or shave because they're not allowed to change these things because God made you perfect. My parents understand I'm a non-believer. I feel very embarrassed when someone sees me in a turban and asks about my religion. I want to cut my hair, but how do I break it to my parents? They are very religious, and I can't imagine their reaction. I love them, and they don't force me to be religious, but I don't think they'd like me to cut my hair. No one in my family has ever done such a thing. I fear I will be an outcast and scorned by everyone. My hair is unmanageable. I waste a lot of time combing and washing it, tying it, and then tying a turban. I have a lot of hygiene problems with it. I don't want to keep it, but I love my parents. What do I do? Now let me tell you, this is the edited version of this letter, because this guy went on for like a page about how much he hates his hair. About how stressful it is. I mean, it sounds funny, but he was like, I have dandruff issues. I have all kinds of like problems with it. It's hard to keep it clean. It's not just a matter of the style. It's like I am having real hygiene issues with this, and it's hard for me to keep up with it, and I just don't want to mess with it anymore. This has become a real burden on me, and he was very anxious about this. And it seems so weird to me because I was like, wait, your parents already know you don't believe. Like you said that they understand you're a non-believer and they're cool with it. I mean, how bad can cutting your hair be, right? I mean, they're already accepting you as saying, I reject the faith. That's pretty accepting, it sounds like to me. I mean, I'm thinking most parents here, if you came out as an atheist, it's like saying that you don't want to sing hymns anymore would be like a minor thing, right? Okay. I can't see them accepting, being really cool that you're an atheist and then freaking out that you won't sing songs in church. It seemed weird to me, and I thought he's probably stressing about nothing. And honestly, if he loves his parents, it's clear he respects them. He respects their right to believe what they want to believe, and he describes them as what seems to be tolerant people. He has this horrible, horrible stress over his hair, and so I thought to myself, why don't you? And I told him, I advised him, why don't you just have an honest heart-to-heart with mom and dad and just say, look, we've already gone over that I don't believe this, and these traditions that go with it, this one is causing me a lot of stress. Explain to them the horror that is your hair, and just tell them, like, I want to cut it. And he's also in college living abroad, I should mention. He mentions that in the next part. But that's what I advised this guy. And boy, did that fail. Fear and rejection part 2. Guy took my advice, and then he wrote me back to tell me what happened. I tried convincing them what you said. Unfortunately, it didn't work. My mom said that I should consider her and dad dead if I ever cut my hair. I live in Australia and they're in India. She said she'd not want to see me ever again if I did anything of that sort. My mom said that after she and dad die, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. I guess I'll have to be what I am, happy or not. Thank you anyway, Guy. Yeah, and he didn't really say, in there whether or not he cut his hair, but I got the strong impression that he's not going to cut his hair. So that's what happened to Guy. It's not just Christianity. And don't get sucked into these ideas of like the softer, gentler religious view, because it's not always what it seems. When you reject certain things, it crumbles. We will disown you if you cut your hair. Okay, Destroying Bonds, Part 1. I'm an atheist married to a conservative religious Baptist. I once was religious myself. We have several children together, and she is emphatic they attend church every week. Being sick is the only reason they will not go, since she doesn't want to spread germs. Not because the kids are sick. My children know I do not believe in God. I have had some conversations with my 2 older sons, 10 and 8. The 8-year-old is like talking to a brick wall. He will flat out tell me the Bible is right, God wrote it, so it's correct. The 10-year-old will talk more openly. The last 2 times I've talked to my 10-year-old, he has gotten upset and started to cry. This last time I pressed him to understand why he was crying. I found out he believes I'm going to hell and is upset by this. So it's stressing the kid out. I mean, the child believes the religion. He thinks his father is going to die and be tortured for eternity. He clearly loves his dad, and this distresses him for very obvious reasons. The 8-year-old, however, is a freaking sociopath. My 8-year-old has also told me I'm going to hell, but is unemotional about it. Yeah, Dad, too bad for you. It's gonna suck, but your choice, I suppose, Dad. To me, this is unacceptable, and my children should not be taught this. I'm not sure where they've gotten this, if someone has told them, or if they've figured it out from the teachings at church. Well, I think what he's trying to stress there is the idea that he doesn't know if someone told him point blank, your father is going to hell, or if they've simply taught them hell and taught them unbelievers go there, and they have sort of pieced it together that, you know what I mean, as opposed to somebody just outright, calling him out to the kids, which would be, in my mind, even more reprehensible for someone to do. It is apparent someone's coaching my 10-year-old in his responses. I'm not sure if it's my wife or someone else, like a pastor or a Sunday school teacher. I also know they pray for me at church. I'm considering telling my wife I do not want them praying for me anymore in their church and to remove me from any prayer lists I'm on. I feel this will help, as my kids will not hear them praying for me every week. And I agree with that, Dad. I don't think that they should be hearing it, especially if the 10-year-old is having, real stress issues over this. My children are also homeschooled, which I'm not a big fan of either. I hate to suggest divorce, but this is where we're heading. I'm looking for any input you all there or the viewers and listeners can give. I guess to wrap it up, how far do I go to prevent the brainwashing and undermining of my children? I think it's obvious what this is doing to the kids, and it's not easy for Dad to be watching this. It doesn't sound to me like Mom is being, very useful conduit either in trying to smooth any of this over. It seems like, if anything, she's like, she is a part of the problem, and simply proceeding forward with choosing the ideology over her husband. This is the one where I said this is not as common. We don't hear this as commonly. I still hide my true identity as an atheist because I am Middle Eastern and from Saudi Arabia. My family is very Islamic. My father used to hit me and abuse me in my childhood to pray and worship Allah. He used to tell me that I did not pray enough to Allah, and Allah will punish me, will make me suffer in this life and the afterlife. My father wanted me to be an Islamic cleric because I used to read a lot of books, but I disagreed. I wanted to become an engineer. I'm a sophomore, so this is my current major degree. We also do get the physical abuse ones regarding Christian homes as well. I do want to say that I don't know as much about the cases in the Islamic community. I know that in the Christian home abuses, a few of them are probably situations where, I would agree it's abuse, but the law would probably not step in. And then the rest of them are situations where I think there might be somebody that's not only religious but mentally ill that's got kids in their custody. So it can get really ugly, but luckily these are more rare letters. This is a good one. Manipulation is huge. Over the years, I've deconverted into atheism. Recently, my wife saw me watching your show and said, if you become an atheist, I'm going to leave you. I don't know how to make her understand what an atheist truly is because she doesn't ever want to discuss religious topics with me. Is there anything I can say to make her understand I'm not bad or evil? We have a 4-year-old son who told me this morning that Mommy said God was everywhere. I'm concerned. I don't want my children indoctrinated into believing something for which there is no proof. But I have to be careful what I say to my son about God because my wife will lose it and leave me. How can someone intelligent and caring like my wife love a man, Jesus, she's never met, yet be willing to divorce the man who's been here for her through thick and thin for 12 years? Carl. That's a fantastic question, Carl. I would like to hear the answer to it myself, because this makes no sense to me. But definitely Carl has nailed it. His wife is choosing the ideology over the marriage vows that she made with her husband. This is more important to her than her family bond. This is a religious Christian value, to love that ideology more than the family, and to make your family suffer if they're not on board with that ideology. Those are the religious values that seem to somehow get praised in this culture as being a good thing, that you take your family to church, you're God-fearing, church-going people, so that's wonderful. We admire that, right? Why? Why, if this is what they're teaching them? I would love to like your page, but I really can't let other friends and family see me do that. I've recently come out to family and most friends, but they're still simmering over it. I was tagged on Facebook in a photo taken of me at a PastaCon. After I was tagged, things got extremely ugly. My father has still not spoken to me. My in-laws originally told my husband to divorce me. They've come around since. Anyway, emotions are high and everyone hates me now. So this person actually was outed. And this was the reaction when people learned that she had attended an atheist conference. I've been an atheist for about 5 years. My children are old enough to remember when I was a believer. They've begun to understand I no longer believe the Christian doctrines, and I'm wondering, how do I explain my new position? My son thinks I'm going to hell. Yeah, we saw that before. We're seeing it again. These children believe this, and then they stress out because their parents are going to hell unless they're scary kids. My mom told me my aunt had a dream. Oh boy, before I start this one, I got to do a little bit of context. Sergio's email was long, but it was interesting. He had an interesting family dynamic. Sergio is Hispanic, and his family is very, very Catholic, and it's like that Hispanic kind of traditional superstitious form of Catholicism. Also, the family seems to be led by a matriarchal aunt of his mother is the younger sister, and his mother is extremely influenced by the older aunt, who is very, very family leadership oriented and has strong religious beliefs and knows that he is an atheist and does not like that. And I told him, your aunt is a genius. My mom told me my aunt had a dream. In the dream, it was revealed that all of Mom's 3 children would be together in the afterlife. This means that either I was going to drag my sister and brother to hell with me, or I was going to come back to the faith and be with them in heaven. That's brilliant, Aunt. Way to amp up your sister's stress about her non-religious son, and way to make her put the pressure on her son to get his ass back to church. Because now it's not just him that he's condemning, it's his brother and sister, and so everything now has been turned up to 10 because of her dream. My mom started telling me it was really, really important I return to the flock because she does not want all of us going to hell. This was followed by how some in our family want me out of the picture so my satanic influence doesn't get to my siblings. I've considered lying and just saying I'm a Christian again, but I'm a notoriously bad liar, and that just isn't sustainable. I advised him to take a tack that Matt took with his own family, which was to basically say this is in God's hands, and it's already been determined. If the aunt has a dream that we're all going to be in the same place together, then clearly this is determined. And if it's been determined, there's no sense worrying about it. It is what it is. You know, there's no affecting it. May or may not work for Sergio. It worked to chill out Matt's mother. So we'll see. I don't know. Only Sergio knows what happened. I am a teen atheist, and I want to know how I can tell my parents. My situation is more complicated than most. It may be more complicated, but it's certainly not rare because we get this letter more frequently than you would think. My father is a minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I fear that my status as an atheist might damage his career. My brothers don't go to church much. This saddens my mother because I'm the only one who still goes. My mother looks to me as her only child that takes an interest in Jesus, except I don't. I just go to make her happy. I don't know how long I can keep up the charade. What do I do? In this particular case, I really don't think the mother is like trying to put pressure. I don't think that she probably has a clue that this child doesn't believe. I think she really is just sort of like, oh my gosh, only one of my children still believes, and I'm so glad that you're still at church. You know, I think mom probably is just sincerely happy that she has one believing child left. And she probably does express that, and in her mind, she probably thinks that that's a positive thing that the kid is hearing and not manipulative pressure. But because the child doesn't believe and she doesn't feel comfortable coming out with it, this just puts more pressure on her to lie. She feels worse now about coming forward because it's like, I'm the only one left. I'm like mom's last hope. And I've already failed her and she doesn't know it. Do I, let her down by telling her that it's all just a sham at this point? Or do I just keep her happy and keep, I don't know. It's that rock in the hard place. I live in New York State. I've been theist most of my life, Orthodox Jewish. Lately, I've begun questioning my faith. I've read books by Dawkins and viewed excerpts of your program online. Presently, I'm reading a book about David Hume. My newfound skepticism is wreaking havoc on me psychologically. I am married with kids, and I feel I can't come out publicly with my skeptical attitude without destroying my family, which I don't want to do. I wrote you to let you know you're having an effect on people all the way out here in New York. We do get letters from people who are in Orthodox communities in both Islam and Judaism. And some of those are the worst because these people are extremely insulated. I mean, they're more insulated than most. There was, for example, one Muslim woman who was working at a daycare, and she lost her faith, and she's like, I work at this Muslim daycare, I'm married in a Muslim family, my whole family is Muslim, my whole community is Muslim, and I don't believe anymore. I don't even know what to do about it. I feel like I'm teaching these children this Islamic stuff at this Islamic daycare. I don't want to do any of this anymore, but literally it's my entire world. I don't even know what to say to that, right? I don't even know we all know it's not going to be pretty. There's no easy solution to that. I have no magic bullet for somebody that writes me a letter like this one. You're Orthodox Jew, the only thing you can hope for is that maybe your spouse is a secret atheist too. Hopefully, hey, I also read Dawkins. I wouldn't bank on it, but I don't know. That would be nice, but I haven't gotten that letter yet. Oh, phew, I'm so glad you told me because I don't believe it either. Would that we get, those every day. I was brought up Jehovah's Witness and broke away at 16. Fortunately, my father is an atheist because my mother and 2 siblings disowned me. Pay attention to that. The religious family members disown this person. The atheist is still bonded. But you're evil if you practice secular family values, and you're admired if you practice the religious family values. But whose values resulted in broken family bonds, in destroyed family? How in the world is it that non-religious values are so denigrated and looked down on and vilified and just misrepresented in our society as wrong and godless in the godless, immoral sense? Whereas this, religious values, they get all this credit and admiration, but they're not superior. They're inferior. It's not a literal disowning, although those words were used, but they have very little to do with me. My 2 practicing siblings get treated with the utmost respect, but when the topic of religion came up toward my children, my mother felt the need to say, well, I'll be the one to teach them about God. I told her this was not going to happen, and she replied, well, good luck having children with no morals. I would like my children to keep an open mind, so when they're old enough, they're free to choose what they want. I do not want my future children to be in the same boat my boyfriend is in. He's been with me for the better part of 5 years now and is really questioning his beliefs. He's afraid to leave his church, since that would be like committing social suicide. A lot of his friends and family would leave his life. He knows this, and so do I. This reminded me weirdly of this strange situation. I had a friend of mine who contacted me that I knew in high school, and she saw that I was involved in atheist activism, and so she was asking me about it. It's not something that I bring up very frequently to people in my social circles. If they don't bring up religion or they don't bring up, my atheism, I just don't. If they're not mentioning it, I'm not mentioning it. If they're not pushing it on me, I'm not pushing anything on them. It's just whatever. So sometimes they bring it up to me and they have questions about it, and I will tell them off the bat, if you're a believer, sometimes my answers to these questions can seem offensive, even if I'm not trying to offend. So bear in mind that at any point, if I start to say things that you find uncomfortable and you don't want to hear this or have this conversation anymore, you just tell me, we can stop the conversation. My goal here is not to offend you, it's just to answer your questions. But sometimes honest answers to these questions can be offensive. It's not what I'm trying to do, but simply not believing sometimes offends people that believe. You don't have to be rude about it. It's just the fact of you existing as a non-believer is like a slap in their face to them sometimes. So we had a discussion about it, and she said that she had raised her children. She's like, she said, I was raised Christian, and I tried to raise my children with a more broad, diverse perspective. So I introduced them to many religions. I didn't just teach them Christianity. I taught them about Buddhism. I taught them about Hinduism. We looked at like even old Greek mythologies, and I exposed them to as many religious views and like theistic opinions as I could in order to give them like a well-rounded perspective so that they could make their own choice. And I said, did you tell them that they could choose no God? Was that like a perspective that they were told to consider? Nope, she never thought of that. Well, I don't think she's lying. I think she probably didn't think about it. I think she probably thought that she was offering them the broad range and that she was doing the right thing. And yeah, diversity is good. And I think that exposing your children to a lot of different religious perspectives often makes them more skeptical thinkers when it comes to religious perspectives, because they're like, oh, there's lots of these and they don't agree. And so maybe I don't have to just buy into this one or that one. So it's not a bad thing what she did. I'm not pissing on it, and it's probably would be good if more parents did something like that. But it's interesting to me how it seems to be the case when you move away from like the organized religion, or you pull back from your particular religion of what you were raised in, that often it just simply translates to pick any religion as long as you pick a religion. Believe in any God as long as you believe in a God. What I don't want is you to not believe in a God, not have a religion, not be theistic. God forbid you should be an atheist, right? And I think this is part of a message that probably sunk in, not consciously to her, but the idea that, you choose some religion. That's the idea. You got to pick one, right? No, you don't. You can reject them all. You don't have to pick any of them. And I wish that was a choice that was more in the front of people's minds and not in the back, so that they understand when they're talking about diversity, it includes people that reject religion completely and reject theism completely. And I'm going to wrap this talking about a stat. This was an interesting trend that's going forward. I'm not making too much of a judgment on it. I think it's interesting. I would say that I probably fall slightly on the scale of this is a better thing than what we had in the past. But interfaith marriages that remain with mixed faith partners, and let me explain what that means. In the past, what happened was if you were going to marry somebody and you were in one religion and they were in another religion, one of you converted, or both of you dropped it. But the idea that you said, I'm Jewish and you're Christian, and we're going to get married, and I'm just going to keep going to synagogue and you keep going to church, and what difference does it make, was very rare. But it's getting less rare. So interfaith marriages that remain with mixed faith partners has shot up 40% from 20% in the 1960s. And raising interfaith families is increasingly common and supported by a growing number of grassroots organizations. In 2008, about 80% of adults ages 18 to 23 approved of interfaith marriage. A number of studies, though contested, show a greater divorce rate among interfaith couples than same religion couples, and we'll talk about some of those study results in it, or those survey results in a bit. A big part of the interfaith religious education, say those involved with interfaith Sunday schools, is providing children with enough religious literacy that they can follow their own faith paths. And again, you've got this idea of follow a faith path. Follow some faith path. Don't be without faith. And I wish that wasn't the only path they were offered, because to me it's still the same path. And this was part about these statistics that they were saying were contested, but this is the numbers that they're coming up with. Interfaith marriages are rising fast, but they're failing fast too. And I'm not sure that, to be honest, I'm not sure that they're failing fast is any sort of horrible thing. I don't know that that they're failing like miserably and horribly and torn apart and devastation. I mean, they may not be working out, and for whatever reason. The fact that they fail at a higher rate may be a corollary as opposed to a causal issue. I don't know that the fact that they're different religions is directly causing a problem, or if they have like family influence, for example. It might be that the couple would be very comfortable with their situation, but the grandparents are freaking out, or that once they have kids, their issues arise, or I don't know. It doesn't really go into what might be causing it. It just is noting that these are higher rates of divorce. But I don't see divorce as an automatic evil. I think that sometimes that's a better choice than staying married. In 2001, 27% of Jews, 23% of Catholics, 39% of Buddhists, 18% of Baptists, 21% of Muslims, and 12% of Mormons reported being married to a spouse with a different religious identification. And just as something funny, there are a lot of people who were like, "You're married to a theist, like, what is that like? And, what does he believe?" And I would say, "Oh, he's Muslim." People would freak out. Like, I wish you could see the faces. And then I would just laugh, and I'd be like, no, he's just like pretty much a deist. It's not, but it was just seeing that shock factor, oh, he's Orthodox Muslim. Less than 25% of people, I think I just read that one. Also in 2001, people who had been in mixed religion marriages were 3 times more likely to be divorced or separated than those who were in same religion marriages. If members of 2 mainline Christian denominations marry, they have a 1 in 5 chance of being divorced in 5 years. A Catholic and a member of an evangelical denomination have a 1 in 3 chance, and a Jew and a Christian have a greater than 40% chance of being divorced in 5 years. In 2009, higher rates of divorce were reported when a husband attends religious services more frequently than his wife, as well as when a wife is more theologically conservative than her husband. So there's all kinds of weird little conflicts that occur there that seem to be tied to these higher divorce rates, and how they're causing them, they don't really go into. But it's an interesting trend. I mean, at least it shows that people are not freaking out so much about, what other people believe. And that would be one positive aspect of it, the idea that they're not focusing the idea that the family isn't focusing so much on a single ideology will cut back on the number of letters I get that are saying, like, I'm the one member that doesn't believe the same way, and I'm getting rejected. If the family is already entering into this with mixed ideologies and understanding that it's okay and that we should just accept it if somebody doesn't believe what we believe, I think we're going to be looking at higher odds of people not being rejected by their families if they believe something different. But these are probably not the families that are writing these letters. But if these are the families that are being seen more often and we're having an upward trend in this sort of mix, I don't know, but I thought it was an interesting trend. It did seem to tie into the talk, and it seemed to be something that looked at the future of the families from which we were getting sort of these letters being differently mixed than the ones that are being described here coming up. And so this could have an impact on that. And I think that's my last slide. So that is the end of the talk.
All right, thank you, Tracie. Wait, we're gonna do a little Q&A, and I'm gonna put this microphone right there. So if you want to come forward and ask a question, please do it at this microphone stand. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have you.
I'll just won't move.
You can just put this like you don't have to wear it. You can just put that up.
I got it.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So if anybody would like to ask a question, you can come up here.
Is it
if
making
you
sound?
cannot come up here and you want me to come to you, just let me know and I'll bring the microphone up to you.
It says it's on. Yeah, is that better? Okay. I just wasn't talking.
Over here if I can. Oh, went back there? All right. Don't want to get too... Yeah.
I don't bite.
I'm not worried about you. Okay, so the question I have is, especially in the case of the more sinister groups like the Jehovah's Witnesses, what can we do to convince them that the family is valuable? Or is that just the wrong way to even look at it? Because clearly they don't think it's valuable.
I mean, when you're dealing with a group of people who think that they're doing what God wants them to do, I just don't know how you impact that. Like, I don't know what a human being could say that would change their mind. I talked about a particular personal situation that I saw where a grandmother, for example, this was a woman who had 3 sons. One of them was not, never confirmed in the Jehovah's Witness church, but the other 2 were. She was a Jehovah's Witness. She divorced their father, which is a violation. She refused to go back into that marriage, and as a result, she was disfellowshipped or shunned or whatever you want to call it. The husband and the 2 boys that were members of the religion would no longer speak to her. She attended an event where the rest of her family also attended, like a little while later, and her eldest son had had a baby in the meantime. She had not seen the child, and she had heard like third hand that, that there was a grandchild. And when her son saw her at the event, he brought the infant to her, never said a word, handed her the baby, let her hold it for a few seconds, and then took it away and left. And that was like her, I guess, him being generous and letting her see her grandchild. And that was kind of it. She was by no account a bad mother. She was, a good person. There was nothing negligent about her or anything like that. There was no cause for them to do this other than she was not adhering to the religion. Ultimately, the sons came to some kind of a theological understanding. I don't know if it was like just through other members of the church or how but they relaxed this standard. And sometimes if you argue or approach people from within their own ideology, like for example, I had a letter from a guy that I posted on Facebook recently that his dad believed that you didn't go to doctors, that you just pray if you're sick, and he got very sick with something that could be treated, but he was going to die if he didn't get treated. The son was freaking out, and he wrote to us and said, is it unethical for me to try to work within Dad's own religious framework to try and convince him religiously that God would want him to go to a doctor? And I said, no. It's professional psychiatric care, professional psychologists and LMFTs will generally work within the belief system of the patient. And I'm like, if you think that you have a theological argument or you can get a pastor on your side to talk to your dad about what God wants in the Bible, who's going to say, yeah, I think God would want you to go to a doctor, and you can convince him that that's what God would want, then you might be able to steer him in a direction of going to the doctor. Well, the guy wrote back to me like a couple years later. I got this letter from him recently, and he says, I just want you to know that, Dad went to the doctor, and he got help, and now, when his friends get sick or something, he says, hey, have you been to a doctor? So Dad changed one of his harmful, beliefs because somebody was able to convince him that his religious perspective on it was doctrinally incorrect. To me, if you're going to try to change the mind of a Jehovah's Witness as to whether or not they should be shunning somebody on like a very hard level, it would have to be done from the perspective of another Jehovah's Witness explaining to them that you can have contact with this person, and I don't think that violates our doctrines. I don't know how else you'd do it. Your voice as a human being is never going to compete with God. Yeah.
You've described a phenomenon where people are shunned because they have dropped out of the religious traditions of their family. And we have a National Smoke Out Day, and we have Valentine's Day. We need to have a day that celebrates people that are shunned like that, and even have like Hallmark cards for them. But I'm having difficulty coming up with a word for them, because if you say shunned, that really puts the focus on the shunner, not the shunnee. And so people that come out, is there a word for these people? That come out of, they've blown up their family is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're talking specifically about people who have been rejected.
People have stood up and said, okay, the consequences of my rejecting this belief system are going to be what they are.
Well, that's everybody that comes out.
Huh?
That's like everyone that comes out, right?
Yeah, well, is there a name for these? We should celebrate them.
Atheist, like self-identified atheists. Out atheists. I don't know. I don't know if there is a label that describes somebody that has come out of a religious home as an atheist.
Recovering. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think there is. If there's a label, I don't know about it.
I had a question. So recently it's been reported there was a new Pew Research that came out that said that, and all the headlines were, Americans are giving up Christianity in a large amount. I guess it was like a 6 or 7% jump, I think. And we're seeing it with the millennials. There's been a pretty high spike.
Sure, trend.
Yeah. So can we see a lot of this hopefully being marginalized in the next 20 years or so? Do you see this trend moving forward that way?
I don't know what to make of the nuns. This is the problem that I have is the same thing I talked about at the beginning. We don't have stats. I don't know who these nuns are. They're religiously unaffiliated, but what does that mean? Are we seeing a trend toward I'm spiritual but not religious? Are we seeing more atheists? People that are atheists that just want to say I'm not religiously affiliated. I'm not religious, because a lot of how many atheists say when somebody comes to them, they move to a new place. What church do you attend? Well, I'm not really religious. They don't say, oh, I'm an atheist. Usually, you tread lightly generally, and so it's hard. It is so hard to predict some of this stuff without having accurate numbers of what exactly is going on in there. Yeah, the religious affiliation the trend away from that is rising at a super spiking rate compared to what it's been in the past. I mean, it's still a low number of the population, but it's like the spike is there. Now, is it going to spike and then level out? Is it going to keep spiking? What's causing it to spike? Right? I mean, is whatever's causing it to spike going to keep going, or is that something that's going to level out or stop? Or I don't really have that enough information to predict what that would mean in 10 years or 50 years.
More questions over here. Hang on. You need the mic.
I know you've mentioned a couple times the lack of data, but are there any long-term studies that quantify or qualify the type of damage that we're talking about? Perhaps psychological.
No.
Like
there's like a woman that's looking into this, and she's got like a label for it. Somebody was talking about it last night, and I've heard of her, but I haven't heard much about her. I know she's got some stuff going on, and she's looking into something similar to this. Like people, it's sort of like she's working with people who are the same sort of demographic that would contact recovery from religion. She's a psychologist, and she's doing her own sort of research, and she's labeling this, and she's trying to get it more quantified so that she can enter this as a diagnosis. It's like, I think she's calling it religious trauma syndrome. But it's pretty much what you're looking at here. It's people that are suffering and worse. I mean, people that are literally, we get letters from people who are like, I don't believe in this anymore, but I still freak out with like fear of hell, and I don't know why. It's completely irrational, And I explain that to people, and I'll say it's like a battered dog, right? If somebody abuses a dog, you adopt an abused dog from a shelter, you might go to pet it, and the dog winces, and it may do that if you have it 10 years. It doesn't matter how kind you are and that you're not the person that hit it. And the dog may really be loyal to you and loving toward you and, generally not fear you, but the moment it sees that action again, it just reacts. And so that's the thing. It doesn't have to be, and just because it's a dog versus a human, you still have these reactions. You don't control always these emotional reactions like in a immediate way. You can work on controlling them, something like PTSD or whatever. You can work long term to kind of get control of that to some degree, but to me that's the issue. Is it's just like this is not like rational response, and this damage doesn't always come under control as soon as somebody realizes that it's not rational. Simply realizing it's not rational doesn't change it. A person can say, I know it's not rational, that I'm claustrophobic. It doesn't make the claustrophobia go away. You have to work at that. And so with this, there are some people that are working on it and trying to quantify it, and I'm very glad because I want to know what's happening here. And I work in a volunteer situation where I'm going to see more of this. It's almost like the concept of law enforcement, where they might have more of a negative attitude about trusting people because you're working every day with people that you don't trust, and so you've got like these people that are doing things that we might only encounter that like once or twice in our lifetime. Someone might break into our car or steal our purse or whatever. But if you're getting these reports every single day, I'm sure it seems like this happens far more often than it would to the normal citizen. And with me, is this exaggerated because I'm getting these emails? Is it because of the work that I'm doing? Am I panicking about this too much? If I get this data and it tells me that, this is a small problem, it's not a big problem, well, good, I get to relax. I get to quit worrying about it. I get to say, oh, okay, well, this is not as big of a problem as I thought, and it's cool.
All right, I got a question back here.
Hi, Tracie.
Hey.
I got a question. At a certain age, children are told that the tooth fairy is not real. And at a certain age, children are told that Santa Claus is not real. So there's a precedent that's been set there that the parents can make something up, their child will believe it, and then at a later age, the parents will come clean and explain to the child that it's not real. So yet, when the parents go to explain to their child that God is not real, they may get resistance from the wife or the husband or the community. But do you think there's perhaps a manner that the parents could go about explaining to a child that the tooth fairy and Santa Claus aren't real in perhaps a different way that might make it down the road easier for them to explain that God is not real?
I guess I'm trying to figure out why parents who don't think God is real would teach their children that God is real. Like, why would I teach my kid about a real God and then intend later to teach them that there is, it almost sounds like what you're saying is that they would have planned this, which I think would be an odd thing for a parent to do. You didn't hear it from me.
Okay, we have another question over here. Hang on one second. There you go.
I have 2 grandchildren in Southern California. They're 2 and 4 years old. I did not raise my kids in any religion at all, and I am the atheist grandma. But my son and daughter-in-law have my grandchildren in a Christian preschool. And the reason they did that is because it was the best one around. They have a lot of money, so they can hire really good teachers. They've got all the playground equipment. It's just really a really good school. Mm-hmm. And I would go down there to take care of them, drop them off at the preschool and pick them up. And sure enough, they did have Bible class. And so my daughter-in-law says, we're not reinforcing any of that at home. They're not praying. If my grandson says, now we have to pray, they'll say, well, we don't do that here. My grandson says, God is everywhere. I go, yeah, Santa is too. He sees you when you're sleeping, So we are not, emphasizing the religion at all. And I understand why they did it. I wish they hadn't, with the Bible study and everything. But, it is what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe they can teach them the other religions at home and really confuse them, right? Have any more questions? Oh, sorry, I missed one back here. All right, we'll just do this last question, and then Tracie's going to hang out for a while, so you feel free to talk to her.
This is sort of in the form of a question. When you brought up all of those figures about people losing their religion or not being as religious, and you were wondering, that you didn't know why and would it continue, one of the things that I tend to think, and I wanted your opinion, is a lot of these things have happened because of mass communication and therefore people being not able to be as isolated as they were before in many cases. And, the whole thing about gay marriage and stuff like that, people see on TV, their, parents can't keep their kids away, most of them. And so familiarity, exposure allows people, and also a lot of the government policies that have allowed women to play sports much more, and excuse me, my voice is going, and people of different religions and so forth to be mainstreamed and not to be discriminated against in certain ways. So there's a lot of forced exposure, and once you're exposed, it's a lot harder to maintain those beliefs, and you have many other options. Even on TV, there are a lot of, and in movies and stuff, there's a lot more about people who aren't traditionally religious or who are atheists and stuff.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of examples, even historically, even before we had mass communication, where social trends influenced religion, and then religion changed. There's like very few Christians today who would say that their religion endorses slavery, but during this, prior to the Civil War, there were huge, thick volumes written by Christian pastors about how slavery was God's plan. And you had, clearly there was a debate. I'm not going to say that every Christian, when it came down to it, was in favor of slavery. Clearly not. But there were plenty of them who said, this is what God intends and this is how it should be. And you're not going to see that today. Why not? Well, because there was a secular move to change that. I mean, this certainly wasn't like a religious move, even though I'll acknowledge, readily that religious people were there right alongside non-religious people to secure the end of slavery and other issues that were, plaguing the nation at that point. But the idea is that ultimately what happened was that we had this reformation of Christianity where now no Christians are going to endorse that, slavery is God's plan and that we should be doing that today. That's not really any kind of mainstream thought in any area of the U.S. So that secular enlightenment, dragging religion along with it, it can even be seen prior to mass communication, although I think you're right that anytime you get like broad exposure, the broader of the diversity, the better. It makes people definitely question and change the way they think when they come in contact with another culture and start getting that cultural exchange. So yeah, I think it definitely changes things.
Great. Thank you, Tracie. Let's give her another round of applause.